Some of the boldest science fiction movies ever made didn't soar at the box office. They stumbled. They were laughed at, overlooked, or tossed aside as failures. Yet, here's the twist. Many of these so-called disasters went on to inspire future filmmakers, launch cult followings, and prove that a flop isn't always the end of the story. So, which forgotten failures are secretly treasures worth revisiting? Let's step into the vault and uncover the ones that came back stronger than anyone ever imagined. Number 11. Sunshine, 2007. Sometimes being too smart for your own good can sink a film. That's exactly what happened with Danny Boyle's Sunshine. On paper, it had everything going for it. A gripping premise, a top-tier cast including Cillian Murphy, Rose Byrne, and Chris Evans, and a visual style that looked like it had descended straight from a dream. The plot was simple, yet cosmic in scope. In a future where the sun is dying, a crew is sent on a desperate mission to reignite it with a massive nuclear payload. High stakes, right? So why did it fizzle in theaters? The movie cost around $40 million to make, but when it opened worldwide, it barely earned half that. Critics at the time were split down the middle. Some admired its beauty, others dismissed it as confusing or too grim. General audiences didn't know what to make of its blend of science, philosophy, and psychological breakdowns. And then came the third act twist, which pushed the story from hard science fiction into surreal territory, losing some viewers in the process. But here's the thing. Sunshine refused to die quietly. Over time, people rediscovered it on streaming and home video. Suddenly, those visuals that felt too heavy on the big screen looked mesmerizing in a smaller, intimate setting. The debates over its ending turned into late-night discussions, and its haunting score by John Murphy became iconic. In fact, the music alone has been recycled endlessly in trailers and TV shows. Today, Sunshine isn't remembered as a misfire. It's remembered as one of the most daring and underrated science fiction films of the 21st century. A movie that dared to combine big ideas with emotional human drama. A movie that failed to shine in theaters but burned brighter than ever once it found its true audience. Number 10. Children of Men, 2006. Imagine making one of the most visionary science fiction movies of the decade, only to watch it stumble financially. That's the tragic irony of Alfonso Cuarón's Children of Men. Based on P.D. James's novel, the story painted a chilling portrait of the future, a world where humanity has lost the ability to reproduce, and society is crumbling under fear, despair, and authoritarian control. At the center of it all stood Theo, a reluctant hero played with weary brilliance by Clive Owen, who becomes responsible for protecting the first pregnant woman in decades. With a budget hovering near $70 million, Universal expected a hit. What they got was a box office haul of barely $35 million domestically, with international markets pushing it just over its cost. Critics raved, but audiences stayed away. Some found it too bleak. Others struggled with its relentless realism. Released during the holiday season, when people wanted escapism, Children of Men felt more like a mirror held up to the world's darkest fears. Yet what once felt too grim to swallow slowly transformed into one of the most respected science fiction films of modern times. Its long, unbroken takes became the stuff of legend. That car ambush sequence, filmed in a single shot, is studied in film schools. Its themes of resilience, hope, and humanity in the face of extinction resonate even more deeply now than they did in the mid-2000s. And let's not forget the cast. Michael Caine's hippie resistance fighter remains one of his most memorable roles. Today, Children of Men is no longer seen as a commercial disappointment. It's viewed as a masterpiece, a film that dared to show a future not defined by spaceships and gadgets, but by humanity's ability to endure when everything else has fallen apart. In short, it's the kind of science fiction that lingers, not because it comforted us, but because it challenged us to look harder at ourselves. Number 9. The Iron Giant, 1999. Sometimes a studio has no idea what treasure it has until it's too late. That's the heartbreaking story of The Iron Giant. Directed by Brad Bird long before he joined Pixar, this animated film fused Cold War paranoia with a deeply emotional tale about friendship and sacrifice. Set in the 1950s, it followed a lonely boy who discovers a giant robot from the stars and teaches it about life, love, and the meaning of "you are who you choose to be." Warner Brothers released the film with almost no marketing, treating it like a side project rather than the masterpiece it was. The result? A box office flop. Made for about $70 million, it barely pulled in $30 million worldwide. Families didn't even know it existed until it was already gone from theaters. Critics raved about it, but praise meant nothing when seats were empty. Yet over time, the Iron Giant became unstoppable. VHS and DVD gave it a second life. Audiences discovered its heart, its wit, and its powerful message. The animation, once overshadowed by flashier Disney musicals, aged beautifully. The performances, especially Vin Diesel's gentle voice for the robot, struck a chord with fans everywhere. By the 2000s, The Iron Giant wasn't just a hidden gem. It was considered one of the greatest animated films ever made. What was once dismissed as a misfire is now a cornerstone of animated science fiction. It's proof that sometimes the most human story in the room comes from a giant piece of metal learning what it means to care. The Iron Giant didn't win at the box office, but it won the one battle that matters most: time. Number 8. The Man Who Fell to Earth, 1976. If you think The Iron Giant was ahead of its time, The Man Who Fell to Earth makes that case tenfold. Nicholas Roeg's surreal adaptation of Walter Tevis's novel starred David Bowie in his first major film role. Bowie played Thomas Jerome Newton, an alien who comes to Earth seeking water for his dying planet, only to be consumed by human greed, lust for wealth, and the slow erosion of innocence. Released in 1976, this film was too strange for mainstream audiences. It wasn't a space opera. It wasn't action-packed. It was a slow, haunting meditation on alienation, fame, and the dark side of ambition. Critics didn't know what to do with it. Some praised its striking imagery and Bowie's otherworldly presence, while others dismissed it as confusing or pretentious. Financially, it flopped, vanishing quickly from theaters. But like Bowie's music, it was built for longevity, not short-term gain. Over the years, cinephiles and sci-fi fans embraced its dreamlike visuals, its raw portrayal of isolation, and its willingness to dig into the alien experience without cheap spectacle. Bowie's performance, equal parts fragile and magnetic, remains one of his best. Today, The Man Who Fell to Earth is hailed as a cult masterpiece. It influenced directors from Nicolas Winding Refn to Denis Villeneuve, and its themes feel more relevant now than ever. A film that failed to conquer the box office, but succeeded in creating an enduring portrait of humanity through alien eyes. Number 7. Paprika, 2006. Before Inception wowed audiences with dreamscapes and bending realities, there was Paprika. Directed by Satoshi Kon, this Japanese animated marvel told the story of a psychologist who uses experimental technology to enter dreams and help patients. But when the device is stolen, dreams and reality begin to blur in dazzling, chaotic ways. When it premiered in 2006, Paprika wasn't given a wide release outside Japan. The niche audience it did find adored it, but financially, it was far from a success. To mainstream distributors, it was too weird, too abstract, and too hard to market. Anime was still fighting for mainstream respect, and this wasn't Pokemon or Dragon Ball, but for those who saw it, Paprika was unforgettable. The animation was a kaleidoscope of shifting realities, surreal imagery, and impossible transitions that felt like watching pure imagination unfold. Its influence spread like wildfire. Christopher Nolan later admitted it directly inspired sequences in Inception. Animators and filmmakers cited it as a milestone in visual storytelling. Over time, Paprika gained a cult reputation as one of the greatest anime films ever made, even if it never saw the financial success of Studio Ghibli or mainstream Japanese hits. Its box office failure was the price of being ahead of its time. Today, it's viewed as a cornerstone of modern science fiction animation, proof that sometimes the smallest release can spark the biggest creative revolutions. Number 6. A Scanner Darkly, 2006. What happens when you adapt a Philip K. Dick novel with a cast of Hollywood stars and then make it look like no film anyone had seen before? You get A Scanner Darkly. Directed by Richard Linklater, the film used a technique called rotoscoping, where live-action footage of Keanu Reeves, Robert Downey Jr., and Winona Ryder was traced over with animation to create a surreal, dreamlike effect. It was trippy, strange, and unforgettable. Released in 2006, the movie had a budget of around $8 million and barely scraped past that worldwide. Audiences weren't sure what to make of it. Was it animation? Was it live action? Was it meant to be funny, bleak, or philosophical? The answer was all of the above. The story itself was classic. Philip K. Dick. Paranoia, identity, and the blurry line between illusion and reality. But for mainstream audiences, it was too unconventional. Critics admired the daring style, but knew it was destined for cult status rather than blockbuster success. Over time, that's exactly what happened. Fans embraced its unique visual identity, its pitch-perfect performances, and its themes of surveillance and trust in a world collapsing under suspicion. In the mid-2000s, that felt like fiction. Today, it feels eerily prophetic. A Scanner Darkly may have failed financially, but it carved out a permanent space in the conversation about what science fiction can be. It proved that a movie doesn't need to be easy to digest to leave a lasting impression. Sometimes it's the odd ones, the ones that dared to look and feel different, that stand the test of time. Number 5. Cloud Atlas, 2012. When the Wachowskis team up with Tom Tykwer to tell a story spanning 6 different eras, connected by themes of freedom, oppression, and reincarnation, you either get a masterpiece or a disaster. Cloud Atlas was both. With an ensemble cast including Tom Hanks, Halle Berry, and Hugh Grant playing multiple roles across centuries, the film attempted nothing less than the grand statement that all lives are connected. Its budget? Over $100 million. Its box office? Barely scraping past $130 million worldwide. For a film of that scale, it was a failure. Many critics found it confusing. Audiences found the multiple timelines and cross-cutting overwhelming. Reviewers couldn't decide if it was profound or pretentious. At the time, most people leaned toward the latter. But here's where history gets interesting. As years passed, Cloud Atlas grew into one of the most rewatched and reanalyzed films of the 2000s. Fans celebrated its ambition, its emotional beats, and its willingness to try something no one else dared. The makeup, while divisive, emphasized its bold message that identities are fluid and that our choices ripple through time. Today, Cloud Atlas has a passionate fan base that defends it as one of the most daring pieces of cinematic science fiction in decades. It may not have been a hit, but it proved that sometimes the films that risk the most are the ones that refuse to be forgotten. Number 4. Annihilation, 2018. Alex Garland's Annihilation is the perfect example of a movie that baffled studios and audiences alike. Starring Natalie Portman, Tessa Thompson, and Oscar Isaac, it told the story of a group of scientists exploring a mysterious shimmer, an expanding zone where biology mutates in terrifying and beautiful ways. The film was visually stunning, intellectually heavy, and emotionally haunting. Released in 2018, it struggled to find an audience. Domestically, it made less than $30 million, far below what Paramount hoped for. The studio even sold international distribution rights to Netflix, clearly worried that mainstream audiences wouldn't show up, and they were right. The movie was too cerebral, too unsettling, and too unwilling to explain itself neatly. But the very qualities that made Annihilation a poor fit for multiplexes made it unforgettable for those who embraced it. Its imagery, a bear with a human scream, a humanoid mirror creature, a kaleidoscopic climax, lingered in viewers' minds long after the credits. Its themes of self-destruction, transformation, and rebirth gave it a depth that most big-budget science fiction avoids. Over time, Annihilation built a dedicated fan base, celebrated as one of the most original and daring science fiction films of the 21st century. What began as a misfire has become a cult classic, proving that the most challenging journeys are often the most rewarding. Number 3. Solaris, 2002. Remaking a classic is always risky. Steven Soderbergh's Solaris wasn't just any remake, it was his take on Andrei Tarkovsky's legendary 1972 film. With George Clooney in the lead, this version leaned into melancholy and intimacy, focusing less on cosmic mystery and more on love, grief, and memory. It told the story of a psychologist sent to a space station orbiting Solaris, where the planet manifests physical versions of people's deepest emotions. Released in 2002, it had a budget of around $47 million, but earned less than $30 million worldwide. Critics were divided. Some praised its quiet, meditative style, while others dismissed it as slow and pretentious. Audiences, meanwhile, didn't know what to expect. Marketing sold it as a sleek sci-fi romance, but what they got was a somber, philosophical mood piece. It wasn't the popcorn event most were looking for. But as the years passed, Solaris found its defenders. Fans came to appreciate its hypnotic visuals, Clooney's vulnerable performance, and Soderbergh's refusal to play it safe. While it never reached the iconic heights of Tarkovsky's original, it carved its own identity as a haunting exploration of loss and connection. Today, Solaris is remembered not as a flop, but as a daring, emotional experiment that dared to slow sci-fi down to a whisper. Sometimes, the quietest stories echo the longest. Number 2. Speed Racer, 2008. When the Wachowskis unleashed Speed Racer in 2008, audiences didn't know what to make of it. Based on the classic anime, it was a neon-drenched fever dream of candy-colored tracks, wild editing, and kinetic energy that felt like flipping through a comic book on steroids. Emile Hirsch, Christina Ricci, and John Goodman led the cast in a story that mixed family drama with over-the-top racing battles. It cost around $120 million to make, but pulled in less than half of that at the box office. Critics called it noisy, confusing, and overwhelming. Families weren't sure if it was for kids, adults, or anyone at all. For a moment, it seemed destined to vanish as just another expensive misfire. And then, something strange happened. Over the next decade, Speed Racer became a cult favorite. Fans embraced its boldness, its sincerity, and its refusal to be cynical. Its visuals, once mocked as chaotic, are now celebrated as groundbreaking, a precursor to the kinetic style of modern superhero films. Younger audiences who discovered it later found joy in its optimism and heart. Today, Speed Racer is no longer a joke. It's seen as one of the most audacious family sci-fi films of the 2000s. A movie that swung for the fences, missed financially, but hit culturally. Number 1. Treasure Planet, 2002. Disney had high hopes for Treasure Planet. A futuristic spin on the classic adventure tale Treasure Island, it fused swashbuckling pirates with spacefaring ships and dazzling animation. Directors Ron Clements and John Musker, the minds behind Aladdin and The Little Mermaid, poured their hearts into it. The story followed Jim Hawkins, a restless teen who discovers a map to the greatest treasure in the galaxy and sets off on a journey that changes his life. With a budget over $140 million, Disney expected a juggernaut. Instead, Treasure Planet pulled in just over $100 million worldwide, making it one of the studio's biggest losses at the time. The release timing didn't help. It opened against Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets and Die Another Day, two unstoppable franchises. Audiences skipped it, and critics were lukewarm, calling it beautiful but uneven. But fans who did see it never let it go. Over time, Treasure Planet gained a passionate following, celebrated for its breathtaking blend of hand-drawn and computer animation, its heartfelt character arcs, and its soaring sense of adventure. Jim's relationship with the cyborg mentor Silver became one of Disney's most beloved duos. Today, Treasure Planet is viewed not as a flop, but as an underappreciated gem, a film that dared to dream big, mixing timeless adventure with futuristic flair. A failure at the box office, but a triumph in the hearts of those who discovered it later. So there you have it, 11 science fiction films that stumbled when they hit theaters, but refused to die. They were too weird, too bold, or simply too misunderstood to succeed on opening weekend. Yet, over time, each of them built a legacy that outshined their failure. Which one do you think deserves the most love today? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the forgotten corners of cinema. After all, sometimes the biggest bombs explode the loudest years later.